Hey, welcome back. So this video is an exercise. It's also a code along. It's one of those where you can pick if you want to build it with me or if you want to try it on your own. But the idea is to kind of force you to use a package that you've never used before. So we're going to make a really simple ASCII art printer. You run it. Here's a screenshot. It asks you what message do you want to print and what color. And in this case, I said print hello world in magenta, and we get hello world printed out in magenta. So the first thing I should mention, you do not need to do this part manually. You could, but it would be a huge pain to try and put this all together. Instead, what you need to do is use a package called PyFiglet. So if you want to do this on your own, research the package, just Google it, and read the documentation, install it with pip, and then try running help and just looking at how it works, or look at an example. All we need is a single line to print this, or a single line from this package at least, a single function, as well as the import, so 2 lines technically. And then to get the colors, you can use the same package we used in the last video, term color. Let me do a quick demonstration. This time I'll say I heart kitty, and I'll print it in, let's go with cyan. And there we go. The heart looks kind of messed up, but let's do one more. And this time I'll just print Python with 3 exclamation points, and I'll do it in blue, or how about green? And that's what we get. The last thing I'll show is that I have a default color. So if the user enters, let's say just print gibberish, that's fine. But if I try and enter orange or a bunch of characters, my default is magenta. You can pick your own. So I'm just checking, is the value not one of the permitted values, which if you need to remember what those are, you can look in help, but it's pretty much blue, green, magenta, red. Oh, I already forgot. Cyan and yellow, I think. But you can just pull up help with term colors and you can see that. So give it a shot if you want to, or follow along as I build it. But the idea is that you're not supposed to know how to use this right out of the box. You need to go through the process of, any developer who finds this package for the first time. You go and read and you look and explore the documentation. So give it a shot, or let's build it now together. So the first thing we should do is install the package. And I've already given you the name, so we just need python 3-m pip install pyfiglet. I already have it installed, so it will tell me that. But if you don't, then it should take a moment and install. And we can start off, let's just open up Python 3 and import pyfiglet, and then run help. But rather than running help on the entire thing, if I do that, you'll see we get so much stuff. What we want instead is to look for this figlet format. So I'm going to quit out of here, and instead we can do help pyfiglet dot figlet format. Figlet sounds so ridiculous saying that multiple times. And we can see there's this function figlet format. It just takes in text and then a font, which defaults to standard. So the text is what we want to be formatted. And what that will actually do, if we try running this, let's make a variable just called result equals, and then we'll do pyfiglet dot figlet format, and then pass in hi, and we look at results. This actually is the ASCII art text in a string. It just has all these new line characters. So when it's actually printed out, we do print results, we get hi. So this is the magical line. And all we'll need to do is ask the user for input and then pass that input into here. And that will give us the ASCII art. And then when we print it, we'll colorize it using the term color package. So let's quit and make a new file. And I'll call this file ASCII-art.py. Okay, so let's begin by importing pyfiglet. And then let's just ask a user at the very beginning, let's ask for a message, and it will just be input. What would you like to print? And we can also ask them for the color, but we won't do anything with it yet. And it will just be another input. What color? Okay. Then we'll just take that message variable, and we have this pyfiglet dot figlet format, which we just saw, and we'll pass in message. And we'll save that to a variable, and we'll just call this ASCII Art or ASCII message. And then at the end, we'll just print ASCII Art. So this is the magical line. We're just asking for input. Let's just see what happens. So that's Python 3 ASCII Art. What would we like to print? Let's just do hi there. What color? It doesn't matter. We're not using it. And we get hi there. So now all we have to do is get the colors working. So that's just going to be import, and then it was called term color. And rather than importing term color like this, I'm going to do from term color import colored, which is what we saw in the last video. And then I'll make another variable called colored ASCII equals, and it's going to be colored, and then we pass in ASCII art, that's what we want to be colored, and then a color. And let's just default right now to have color be green. And then we'll just print colored ASCII. Okay, so we're getting the ASCII art, well, we're asking for input, then we're taking it and formatting it using PyFiglet, then that comes back, and then we're passing it into colored, which we've imported from term color, and then that returns the colored version, but it doesn't print itself. We then have to pass it into print. And let's try running it. Let's print blah blah as red, and we get blah blah as green. Perfect. So now we just need to connect the color portion so a user can enter a color, and then we'll just pass color right there. So whatever the user types will be passed in under in the keyword argument color. And now let's test it. What do I want to print? LOL, and we'll print it as blue. And that works. I'll do the same thing, and I'll print it as, let's do yellow. But then the problem is, what if I just try and print orange? It breaks everything. So let's write some code to defend against that. And the first thing we could do is just look at the permitted colors. Open up Python 3, import term color, and then we'll do help term color. And you can see available text colors right here. So I'm just going to copy that. And then go back, and I'll just print it, or what am I saying? Paste it here. And the first thing that we'll do, we're just going to test if the user provided color is in, and we could make this a list if we wanted to. We're going to need to put quotes around everything. It's kind of annoying. But we could make it a list, and then just check, is color in that list? And if it's not, then we'll set color to be whatever default we want, white or magenta or blue. And actually, rather than a list, this would be a good use case for a tuple, because we're never going to change this inside of our application. We're not going to have code that is adding a color or removing a color. This is just sort of a constant list. So I'm going to make it a tuple because it's lighter weight. And I'll add in my quotes. There we go. Save that. And I'll just call it valid colors equals that tuple. Let me put that up top. Cool. And then after we get a user color, we'll just write an if statement. If color not in valid colors, then we'll change color to be whatever default we want. I'll go with magenta. It's the closest thing to purple, of course. And that should be that. So we have our valid colors list. If whatever the user enters is not in this tuple, it's a tuple, not a list. And if that's the case, we'll give it a default value of magenta and then use that color variable down here. Otherwise, if it is in this list, then we'll just print that color. Let's test. So I want to print, I'll just do ha ha ha. And this time I want green. That works. Let's do the same thing, but I type orange, I get magenta because orange isn't an option, sadly. And if I type blue, that works. Okay, so we'll stop there. We built a very simple application, but it's combining two different modules. The one refactor we could make is do the same thing up here. All that we're using from PyFiglet is Figlet format. So I'm going to instead do from PyFiglet import figlet format. Those are the only things we need. And so then I can remove this pi figlet, and our code is a little bit cleaner. And we could wrap this up in a function. We could call it def print art, and it could take in message and a color. And then we'll just move this code inside of there, all of this. And then these two things where we ask for user input, we'll just pass them in to print art, message, color. Totally unnecessary, but it's just, I just wanted to show you because we haven't been using that many functions yet. Still pretty fresh in our course memory. So this is something we could do. Valid colors is only used inside of this. There's no reason to make it global. We can just define it in there. And that should be that. Let's just double check. See if it still works. What do we want to print? Let's print red in red. And it still works. So now we've just created a function called print art, and it takes 2 arguments, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so we combined 2 different modules to make something pretty simple, but still bigger and better than what we could do on our own.